We are taught from day one to be independent, to be maverick, to do our own thing, that everything falls on your shoulders. And that's just absolutely not true. It's a falsehood. We need each other. So I want to talk about bloodstained allies. As we talk about high impact living, as we talk about having a maximum impact, we need friends in our life. We need people who are sanctified relationships, people who really care about us. You know, even today, I had a young man who I think he considers me like a bloodstained ally for him. And he was in the throes of a big decision that he needed to make, and he wanted some advice. So I shared from my perspective, and I would say he was probably 25 to 26 years old. He started his own company, and he wanted wisdom about that. And I was able to give that. And, you know, every day we're faced with choices and decisions that could change the trajectory of our life. And to have some other people in our life that we can ask wisdom from, that we can get advice from, is huge. And I find that most of us don't have that. Most men especially don't. I think women are better at bloodstained allies than men, but most of us men tend to be isolational in the way we treat people, and it's to our own detriment that we do that. That's a big, huge mistake. And so at our church, at The Road, we talk about bloodstained allies all the time. In my book, Worshiper Warrior, I have a chapter called Allies, and I talk about David. Because David's a really good example to us of the power of bloodstained allies. Here is the king's son-in-law running for his life from King Saul, and he goes to the cave of Adullam, and 400 men gather to him and become his, what would be later called his mighty men. David's mighty men came from this group. But I don't know what would have happened, honestly, to David if he hadn't had these bloodstained allies in his life. Same thing with Paul. Paul had Silas. Paul had Barnabas. Paul had others in his life. If you want a fascinating look at the importance of bloodstained allies in the Apostle Paul's life, look at the last chapter of Romans. And we just finished a study of Romans at our church here, and it's like 25 names in the last chapter of Romans of commendation that Paul is giving to them. These are close friends of his. So Paul, the theologian, Paul, the leader, Paul, the very driven missionary, had lots of close relationships. So we need relationships in our life. And in our culture, we are taught from day one to be independent, to be maverick, to do our own thing, that everything falls on your shoulders. And that's just absolutely not true. It's a falsehood. We need each other. And when I went through a really deep, dark time in my life, almost a decade ago, it was bloodstained allies that came to my fire pit and bolstered me with encouragement and belief in me that got me through it, man. I don't know what would have happened if it hadn't been for bloodstained allies in my life. What are bloodstained allies? I think bloodstained allies are men and women who have been bloodied by life. They have made some mistakes. They have failed. So they're not judgmental. They're not judgmental toward you. They're not going to cascade you down this road of what a loser you are because you made some mistakes. Bloodstained allies are people who've also been bloodstained by life. And thus, they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to their own life and their own shortcomings. And that invites and gives permission to you to be vulnerable also. So bloodstained allies are people who've been bloodstained. They're also people who are allies. So they're on the same team. I'm not talking about just anybody. I'm talking about people with the same values and vision that you have in your life. Because if I go to someone tomorrow asking about advice related to a business that I'm involved in, and they're not a kingdom person, they're not a Christian, they're not Jesus followers, they're going to give me advice that's based probably completely on money, completely on security in that regard. which is fine. But I need allies that know what my vision is, they know what my values are, and they have them too. And they say, well, okay, look, here's the 4 or 5 components involved in that. And they can give me advice. That's an ally. That's someone who is on the same team, going in the same direction with the same vision and values. A bloodstained ally also is somebody who's vulnerable, someone who is willing to talk about shame, brokenness, and their own failures. And so because of that, they've experienced some failures, they've experienced some brokenness. They really do have good, solid relational advice for you in that relationship. You guys can relate to each other because you've both been in some sticky situations where you might have wanted to even give up. The other thing about bloodstained allies is that our hearts were made for connection. You are made for connection, men and women. God made you that way. All the studies show that even little children that are caressed and cuddled next to the breast of their mother tend to be more secure people, tend to have a deeper level of intimacy toward others. And the opposite is also true. Those that haven't had that growing up have all kinds of connective disorders. So we need connection, and we need to keep nurturing connection in our life. It's huge. It's really important. And it's in that connection that we also build within us a web of relationships and networks that can bolster our confidence as we move out. Because there's something confidence building in knowing you've got a family, in knowing that you've got some friends that are they're gonna watch your back, they're gonna have your six no matter what's happening. They're gonna take care of you. And so bloodstained allies is huge in having a maximum impact life. One of the most interesting studies has been called the Amaya effect. And having lived in Japan for almost 10 years, I really saw this to be true. And in this study, which was done at the University of California, Berkeley, quote, the causes of our health problems are often attributed to industrialization, urbanization, technology, pollution, smoking cigarettes, and the fast pace of life. But the Japanese have all of these things. Indeed, they smoke more than any other nation. They have worse problems in all of the areas mentioned. But despite these health hazards, Japanese have the highest life expectancy in the world, the lowest heart disease rate among nations, and the lowest rate of death from all causes. How is this possible? What we believe explains the protection found among Japanese is called amai, a characteristic that they value. Amai emphasizes a belief that the well-being of the individual depends on cooperation with others, goodwill from a person's group. In other words, social support is central to the values of Japanese practice and continues to provide resistance to disease, end quote. Isn't that amazing? So here's a society, and I know this is all true having lived there. We were with college students every day because I was working on a college campus. Everybody smoked cigarettes. The pollution, and this is in the 80s and 90s in Tokyo, was so bad that you could take a baby wipe and just wipe it. I could wipe it across my face when I got home, and it was just black, just from all of the soot, all of the pollution that was on my skin from being in the city all day. Their life expectancy is higher. The rate of disease is lower. The connectivity of the relationships of the people actually builds their immune system. It actually strengthens their immune system by having relationships. And men and women, your immune system is stronger when you have relationships. Your immune system is stronger in all forms of disease, all kinds of problems, especially like depression, loneliness, and anxiety when you have close ties, close connection with people. So let me challenge you that a high-impact life is someone who, in another course that I did here on EmpowerU, I talked about EQ, emotional quotient, the importance, again, of the ability to have good relationships. All of that builds your immune system. It builds your spiritual immune system, your physical immune system, your mental and emotional immune system. So let me challenge you as I close out this series that bloodstained allies are huge. You can do all the others well, but if you don't have friends, if you don't have connection, you're going to be worse off. So I challenge you to work on bloodstained allies. Look for someone in your life that you trust, that you value, that you respect. And maybe ask them if they would be a bloodstained ally. Explain what it is. Have them watch this video and begin that relationship. I have a lot of guys in my life like that. It's really had a huge impact in everything that I do. And so I hope this is helpful to you. I hope you'll go for it. Have a wholehearted maximum impact life. Go for it, man. Bring it on.